So why is the competition structure for 1, 2 and 4-star competitions changing, and why couldn't we have left things as they are?
Well, the whole competition structure is changing. The competition review considered from the ground up what's needed, for whom, how often and where. So each event and each format's been planned to work together holistically as a whole rather than separately and independently. And this is to ensure that we provide competition at the right levels, in the right frequency and in the right locations to help engage and develop players. I can confirm that the current tiered structure of 5 levels for open tournaments, that is development, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star and 4-star, will now become 3 tiers, local, zonal and national. Nothing's wrong with them per se, and they're well valued by members as the bread and butter of tournament play, but they can be more clearly structured and targeted to provide improved opportunities as part of the wider programme. So it's best to consider this an evolution and a refinement rather than a wholesale change. Each event will have a defined role and purpose, who, what, why, an appropriate space in the calendar so that the pathway is clear and the formats work in harmony. Worth mentioning, the main changes actually take place for season 25-26, so that's a year from now.
So what did the consultation arising out of the competition review say about these competitions that led to this evolution?
Well, firstly, some of the current tiers are simply not being used, and some of them are events that are being run at grades that don't actually suit the size and standard. For instance, we have some 2-stars that are being run on 2 tables with 10 or 12 entrants, and that's never what was intended. All events need to remain fit for purpose for the future, and that's what the changes will help us achieve. The aims of the review defined originally what was required, reduce levels of congestion, encourage a more geographical spread of tournaments, provide greater quality assurance, and create upward pressure through a pathway of tournament events. And that word pathway is actually key to what we're trying to achieve. The consultation, feedback and analysis then shaped how we deliver that. Some of the agreements were lower tier tournaments to run concurrent at local level, mid-tier tournaments running concurrent at zonal level, higher tier tournaments standalone at national level, making those lower level tournaments easier to access and more affordable to deliver, and hosts applying for event dates, which we then apportion centrally to maximise the geographical spread for each age group. So the evolved structure will provide a better targeted and a better structured competition opportunity across the membership.
So is it true to say the 1-star competitions will become local opens, 2-stars become zonal opens, and 4-stars become national competitions?
Not exactly, they're not directly analogous. We expect that all 1-star competitions will naturally fit into the local open category, but where there may be some changes or amendments are in the 2-star competitions, which may become local opens or zonal opens, depending on how they compare to the criteria that's laid out for each competition. It may be that some 2-stars require some tweaks or amendments to become zonal opens, and many will actually be a more appropriate fit as local opens. The competition team and the tournament approval panel will of course work with clubs to help them through that process, and the same goes for 4-stars, some of which will become zonal opens and some of which will become the national opens. Again, we'll work with clubs to support them through that. But the 2 absolutely critical things to stress are that the competition opportunities themselves will not be lost, and it also that each tier will represent a meaningful step up in terms of size and standard. More tables, more players. As you go up the pyramid, there are naturally fewer but larger and better events, and that principle is embedded in the pathway.
So how will the requirements to deliver these competitions change?
One of the key changes will be behind the scenes in terms of the application and allocation process. So rather than a free-for-all, event applications will be invited on a quarterly basis and then assessed collectively to ensure the best options and the best geographic spread for members. This process will also help us prioritise against the factors that members have told us are most important. So formats, categories, environment, length of day and so on. But the biggest change on the ground will be that the smaller local events start to take place on the same day but in different areas, and that each tier represents that genuine step up, a larger and a higher standard as you go up the tiered open tournaments. Again, there'll be no restrictions on the number of dates for local opens.
How much more will this cost tournament organisers to deliver?
So no changes that Table Tennis England have made will impact on organisers' costs. In fact, the changes we've made for this coming season to the sanctioning process, the regulatory requirements and the levies payable to Table Tennis England will actually make the events cheaper and easier for organisers to run. So for example, the changes to event levies for organisers have been reduced by an average of 30 to 40% for 1-star and 2-stars, and by more than 50% for youth and veterans 4-stars. That will continue in the following seasons.
How much more will this cost participants to compete in?
So the cost of the current events are wholly at the discretion of the organisers, but changes for the coming season make it cheaper and easier for the organisers to run, and so we trust that entrants will see the benefits of that too.
And will the ranking points for these competitions remain the same?
Well, we recognise that ranking is really important to members, and weightings will be considered and tweaked so that every event sits in the appropriate place in the overall competition programme. We absolutely anticipate that the ranking weighting for local opens will increase from that of the current 1-star events. Ultimately, the weightings will match up to all the other event formats.
I understand we will be limited in the number of local, zonal and national competitions we can run each year. So is it true we'll only be able to run these on certain dates rather than whenever we want?
So there are no restrictions on dates when local opens can take place. There will be designated windows, but if another date works at local level and doesn't create a clash, then that's absolutely fine. In fact, the change is to make these events more accessible for participants by having more events, more locally, reducing clashes via better structuring of the calendar, and making it easier to deliver for organisers by reducing fees as well as the physical and officiating requirements. What are currently 4-stars will become zonal opens, as already mentioned, or national opens for the largest and highest standards, and these will take place on more structured dates, and they will be capped in terms of how many can take place, but not size. So this is to ensure the increasing size and standard that I already mentioned is appropriately delivered. As you go up the pyramid, there are naturally fewer but larger and better events. But a key change in the review that will help avoid clashes is the process by which we build the calendar from the ground up in layers. So with international commitments, national championships, national series, national leagues, national opens, zonal opens, local opens by each age group. And that process will ensure that events for each age group and standard are appropriately spaced and not sitting on top of each other in the calendar. And of course, each year we'll look at the demand for these events and review the number that take place. So if the demand and the rationale is there, we will of course look to grow those competitions accordingly.
So is it true we'll have fewer competitions at a local level?
No, absolutely not. So take the local opens specifically. Rather than the current 1-star approach of any potential date except a direct clash, this will become any potential date except a direct clash plus circa 10 dates that are already penciled in the calendar. So we anticipate there will be more opportunity for events at local level.
So what's going to replace the Grand Prix competitions?
Well, the specific Grand Prix events will no longer be delivered after the final events this season, and that's because resources, of course, finite. We simply can't do everything. We have to prioritise. But we're working with the table tennis community to start to deliver senior 4-stars in the same space as the Grand Prix. This is the same approach that's always existed and has always been successful for cadet and junior 4-star events and also for satellite Grand Prix events. The first one's just been announced, so again, these events are not going away, they're just evolving slightly. The 4-stars will become national opens in 25-26, including the cadet junior and the senior 4-stars. They'll stand alone in the calendar to avoid clashes and increase profile. We'll be able to access financial support from Table Tennis England, and the top players will be actively driven to compete in order to gain eligibility for national championships or to qualify directly for the national championships. So there's going to be a transitionary period for the senior 4-star events, but if the demand is there, and we're confident from member feedback that it is, then of course there's a robust and demonstrable basis for those events and this approach to be viable. And of course, if we need to tweak this approach slightly after year 1, then we will.
So does this mean Table Tennis England won't be running these new 4-star or national open competitions? How will they be delivered?
Yeah, correct. The table tennis community will deliver events in this space in the same way as already proved successful for 1 star, 2 star, cadet and junior, 4 star and satellite Grand Prix. So, you know, this is a proven approach, and of course it's not limited to just clubs. So any league, county, club, interested individuals or group of individuals can come together and deliver those regulated events. We've already got the first event in the calendar in August. We have numerous conversations ongoing with potential organisers of Senior 4 Stars and Satellite Grand Prix, so we expect a full programme of these events in 24-25.
And will the formats of those events be the same?
Well, that'll be up to the organisers. Yes, they could be, is the answer, but the organisers will retain flexibility on entry cost, categories, formats, prize money. Again, same approach that's proved successful for 1 stars, 2 stars, cadet and junior 4 stars and satellite Grand Prix.
And what will happen to the satellite Grand Prix competitions currently held in the other home nations?
So Table Tennis England currently regulates satellite events in Wales and in Jersey. These take place outside of England, but with TTE regulations, TTE membership and TTE rankings. Those events will be able to transition onto the new framework in 25-26 at zonal level, and we've been in touch with the organisers throughout the review process.
And what else can you tell us about how the tiered opens link to the wider competition review?
Well, we've discussed one specific element today, the tiered open tournaments, but the review includes many exciting changes across the competition spectrum, including the new Under-21 National Cup, the new Under-13, Under-15 and Under-19 National Series, alignment of the National Club Leagues and reconfiguration of the National Championships. I'm sure everyone will be aware of the current Table Tennis England strategy, Table Tennis United. So along with many other holistic strands across the breadth of Table Tennis England activity, that strategy links the national competitions upwards to talent and performance, and you'll see that in the new formats and structure, and it links downwards into locally regulated, club-based and recreational play through the area-specific plans being driven by the new area networks and area staff. The reviews followed a really transparent, rational and robust process with expert input and membership consultation at every stage, and also communicated openly at each stage. So at an absolutely fundamental level, it reflects what the wider membership have said is important and should be our priority and a long-term foundation for success. So the whole review is about strengthening the pathway, building more local, better structured, less burdensome, less expensive and better linked opportunities to play table tennis.